Okay, so once again, good day everyone. So our topic for this is about review of related literature and studies. Again, for you to develop your title, no, for you to broaden your ideas, no, related to what you wanted to research on, you need to review a lot of literature, no. So because a literature is a summary of studies related to a particular area of research, no. So it identifies and summarizes all the relevant research conducted on a particular topic. So it is important that your related literature is focused, no? Therefore, you should choose a limited number of studies that are central to your topic, no, rather than trying to collect a wide range of studies that might not be closely connected. Okay, so again, it is important, of course, to look into a topic wherein it's closely related to your proposal or to your research title. Okay, to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our first presenter. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, classmates, and good morning, Doc. Our topic this morning is Lesson 3, Review of Related Literature and Studies. For the objectives, we need to define and understand related literature, related studies, and synthesis. So let us start with review of related literature. RRL is a detailed review of existing literature related to the topic of a thesis or dissertation. In an RRL, we talk about knowledge and findings from existing literature relevant to our topic. Review of related literature is composed of discussion of facts and principles to which the present study is related. For instance, if the present study deals with drug addiction, literature to be reviewed or surveyed should be composed of materials that deals with drug addiction. These materials are usually printed and found in books, encyclopedias, professional journals, magazines, newspapers, and other publications. These materials are classified as local if printed in the Philippines and foreign if printed in other lands. Related studies. Studies, inquiries, or investigation already conducted to which the present proposed study is related or has some bearing or similarity. They are usually unpublished materials such as manuscript, thesis, and dissertation. They are also classified as local and foreign. Importance, purposes, and function of related literature and studies. One of the purposes of literature review is to gain an understanding of the existing research and debates relevant to a particular topic or area of study, and to present that knowledge in the form of a written report. A survey of review of related literature and studies is very important. Reviewed literature and studies serve as foundation of the proposed study. This is because related literature and studies guide the researcher in pursuing his research venture. Reviewed literature and studies help or guide the researcher in ways. 1. They help or guide the researcher in searching for or selecting a better research problem or topic. By reviewing related materials, a replication of a similar problem may be found better than the problem already chosen. 2. They help the investigator understand his topic for research better. Reviewing related literature and studies may clarify vague points about his problem. 3. They ensure that there will be no duplication of other studies. There is duplication if an investigation already made is conducted again in the same locale using practically the same respondents. 4. They help and guide the researcher in locating more sources of related information. This is because the bibliography of a study already conducted indicate references about similar studies. 5. They help and guide the researcher in making his research design, especially in A. The formulation of specific questions to be researched on. B. The formulation of assumptions and hypotheses if there should be any. The formulation of conceptual framework. We have an example of this conceptual framework. Common-oriented policing, a conceptual framework. D. The selection and application of the methods of research. E. The selection and application of sampling techniques. F. The selection and or preparation and validation of research instruments for gathering data. G. The selection and application of statistical procedures. H. The analysis, organization, presentation, and interpretation of data. I. The making of the summary of implications for the whole study. J. The formulation of the summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations. And number 6, they help and guide the researcher in making the comparison between his findings of other researchers on similar studies with the end of view of formulating generalization of principles, which are the contributions of the study to fund of knowledge. Let us go to the characteristics of related literature and studies. There are certain characteristics of related materials that make them of true value. Among these characteristics are, number 1, the surveyed materials must be as recent as possible. This is important because of rapid social, economic, scientific, and technological change. Findings several years ago may be of little value today because of the fast-changing lifestyle of the people. There are exemptions, however. Treatises that deal on universal or things of more or less permanent nature may be still good today. Another exception is when a comparison or contrast is to be made between the conditions of today and those of a remote past, say 10 or 20 years ago. 2. Materials reviewed must be objective and unbiased. Some materials are extremely or subtly one-sided, either political or religious, etc. Comparison with these materials cannot be made logically and validity. Number 3. Materials surveyed must be relevant to the study. Only materials that have some bearing or similarity to the research problem at hand should be reviewed. 4. Surveyed materials must have been based upon genuinely original and true facts or data to make them valid and reliable. There are cases where fictitious data are supplied just to complete a research report, example thesis or dissertation. Of course, this kind of deception is hard to detect and to prove. Thus, this is a real problem to honest researcher. 5. Reviewed materials must not be of few or too many. They must only be sufficient enough to give insight into the research problem or to indicate the nature of the present investigation. They may also depend upon the availability of related materials. Sources of the related literature and studies. The sources of related literature and studies may include the following. 1. Books, encyclopedias, almanacs, and other similar references. 2. Articles published in professional journals, magazines, periodicals, newspapers, and other publications. 3. manuscript, monograms, memoirs, speeches, letters, and diaries. 4. Unpublished thesis and dissertation. 5. The Constitution and laws and statute of the land. 6. Bulletins, circulars, and orders emanating from government offices and departments, especially from the Office of the President of the Philippines and the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. 7. Records from schools, especially reports of their activities. 8. Reports from seminars, educational or otherwise. And 6. Official reports of all kinds, educational, social, economic, scientific, technological, from the government and other entities. Where to locate the sources of related literature and studies? Generally, the sources of related literature and studies are located in the following places. 1. Libraries, either government, school, or private libraries. 2. Government and private offices. 3. The National Library. 4. The Library of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Synthesis. Research synthesis is the process of combining the results of multiple primary research studies aimed at testing the same conceptual hypothesis. It may be applied to either quantitative or qualitative research. Synthesizing simply means combining. Instead of summarizing the main points of each source in turn, you put together the ideas and findings of multiple sources in order to make an overall point. Here is an example of unsynthesized. France, in 2008, studied undergraduate online students. He looked at 17 females and 18 males and found that none of them liked APA. According to France, the evidence suggested that all students are reluctant to learn citation style. Perez, in 2010, also studies undergraduate students. She looked at 42 females and 50 males and found that males were significantly more inclined to use citation software. Findings suggest that females might graduate sooner. Goldstein, in 2012, looked at British undergraduates. Among a sample of 50, all females, all confident in their abilities to cite and were eager to write their dissertations. And here is the example of synthesized. Studies of undergraduate students reveal conflicting conclusions regarding relationships between advanced scholarly study and citation efficacy. Although France in 2008 found that no participants enjoyed learning citation style, and Goldstein in 2012 determined in a larger study that all participants felt comfortable citing sources, suggesting that variables among participant and control group populations must be examined more closely. Although Perez in 2010 expanded on France's original study with a larger, more diverse sample. What are the steps to synthesize information from different sources? Step 1. Organize your sources. After collecting the relevant literature, you've got a lot of information to work through and no clear idea of how it all fits together. Before you can start writing, you need to organize your notes in a way that allows you to see the relationships between sources. One way to begin synthesizing the literature is to put your notes into a table. Depending on your topic and the type of literature you are dealing with, there are a couple of different ways you can organize this. Summary table. A summary table collates the key points of each source under consistent headings. This is a good approach if your sources tend to have a similar structure. For instance, if they are all empirical papers. A summary table collates the key points of each source under consistent headings. This is a good approach if your sources tend to have a similar structure. For instance, if they are all empirical papers. Each row in the table lists one source, and each column identifies a specific part of the source. You can decide which headings to include based on what's most relevant to the literature you are dealing with. For example, you might include columns for things like aims, methods, variables, population, sample size, and conclusion. So for each study, you briefly summarize each of these aspects. You can also include columns for your own evaluation and analysis. The summary table gives you a quick overview of the key points of each source. This allows you to group sources by relevant similarities, as well as noticing important differences or contradictions in their findings. Synthesis matrix. A synthesis matrix is useful when your sources are more varied in their purpose and structure. For example, when you are dealing with books and essays, making various different arguments about a topic. Each column in the table lists one source. Each row is labeled with a specific concept, topic, or theme that recurs across all our sources. Then for each source, you summarize the main points or arguments related to the theme. The purposes of the table is to identify the common points that connect the sources, as well as identifying points or disagree. Step 2. Outline your structure. Now you should have a clear overview of differences between the sources you have read. Next, you need to decide how will you group them together and the order in which you will discuss them. For shorter papers, your outline can just identify the focus of each paragraph. And for longer papers, you might want to divide it into sections with headings. There are a few different approaches you can take to help you structure your synthesis. If your sources cover a broad time period and you found patterns in how researchers approach the topic over time, you can organize your discussion chronologically. If the literature covers various different topics, you can organize it thematically. If you're drawing on literature from various different fields or they use a wide variety of research methods, you can organize your sources methodologically. If your topic involves a debate between different schools of thought, you can organize it theoretically. Step 3. Write paragraphs with topic sentences. What sets a synthesis apart from a summary is that it combines various sources. The easiest way to think about this is that each paragraph should discuss a few different sources, and you should be able to condense the overall point of the paragraph into one sentence. And this is called a topic sentence. For an effective synthesis, you can use topic sentences to link back to the previous paragraph, highlighting a point of debate or critique. Example: several scholars have pointed out the flaws into this approach. While recent research has attempted to address the problem, many of these studies have methodological flaws that limit their validity. Don't try to cover every single point from every single course. The key to synthesizing is to extract the most important and relevant information and combine it to give your reader an overall picture of the state of knowledge on your topic. Last step 4. Revise, edit, and proofread. Like any other piece of academic writing, synthesizing literature doesn't happen all in one go. It involves redrafting, revising, editing, and proofreading your work. Whether you're synthesizing literature for an essay, a literature review, or any other paper, you should make sure you can answer yes to all of these questions. And that is the end of my report, and here are the list of the references where I got the content of my topic. Thank you very much. Thank you po.
Okay, so thank you very much, Madam, no, for your well comprehensive discussions related to our topic for today. No, again, many researchers struggle when it comes to writing literature review for their research paper. No, so a literature review is a comprehensive overview of all the knowledge available on a specific topic till date. So when you decide on a research topic, usually the first step you take in the direction of conducting research is learn more about the previous research published on the topic, and this eventually translate into literature review. So when you write your research paper, so literature review is one of the pillars on which your research idea stands since it provides context, relevance, and background to the research problem you are exploring. Okay. So a while ago, our presenter actually gave us a lot of types of literature review and actually an example. So a literature review or reviews can be categorized as experimental or theoretical. So experimental literature review basically refers to surveying all the information available on a particular topic and critically analyzing the gaps that need to be worked upon. Because of course, majority of our panel during our seminar is writing asking, let's say, what will be the research gap? How did you come up with your research gap? So the possible answer in their question is that based on my review of related literature, no, I could do this conceptual framework, and I think that this will be the gaps. No, it is stated with the review of related literature about this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so in this sense, it is essentially forms the first experiment of any research project. So the more extensive the review, the more precise and systematic the research project will be. Therefore, literature is one of the most critical parts of one's research. Okay, now, theoretical literature review essentially involves two steps. As I mentioned, no, surveying and critically reading the existing literature. This step is commonly referred to as experimental literature review. Okay? Number two is summarizing and actually penning down the gist, no, of your review in an organized manner. And this is known as theoretical review. Okay? Again, we have experimental and theoretical review. So, literature review could be a part of a dissertation, thesis, or research article and standalone literature review. Okay? So, every research thesis or sometimes report or research article begins with an introduction to the topic of research. So most commonly, the review of related literature or chapter 2, you need to introduce the content of your chapter 2. No? So the main purpose of the review is to introduce the readers to the need for conducting the said research. Why do I need to conduct research? Why do you need to focus on this matter or on this topic? So a literature review should begin with a thorough literature search using the main keywords in the relevant online databases such as Google Scholar, no? We have also Science Direct, ACM, IEEE, and a lot more. No? Once all the relevant literature has been gathered, it should be organized. No? A while ago, our presenter gave us a to F ba or H or I, no? So the background literature about the broad research topic to introduce the readers to the field of study. So this will be the way how we'll be able to organize. No? You need also to look into the research progress on the topic, which can be organized thematically or chronologically. Ideally, separate themes should be discussed in a chronological manner to describe how research in the field has evolved over the time and to highlight the progress in the field. So, the review should indicate or include a comparison in contrast of different studies. So, discussing the controversial aspect helps identify the main gaps that need to be worked upon. And this is essential for defining the problem statement of the study and highlighting the significance of the research under question. Because there are certain cases that you are asking, do I need to include the age, the sex, or even the educational background of the participant of the study or respondent of the study? No? So through reading of your literature, you will be able to identify what are the possible content of your problem statement or the statement of the problem per se. No? So once a problem statement that has been defined, the strengths and pitfalls of other studies that have tackled the problem statement should be discussed. This is important for outlining the need and novelty of the research. So a literature review should not be a mere recounting of all available information. It should be a critical and analytical summary of the selected literature that guides the readers through the central theme of the research. So, how about the standalone literature? Okay, so literature reviews can also be written as standalone articles. No, these are not different from the literature review section as what we discussed earlier. However, they are not followed by experimental data. So they basically fall into two broad categories. No, we have narrative reviews and systematic reviews. So when we say narrative reviews, these are theoretical discussions of relevant information on a particular topic and its critical analysis. And these are mostly qualitative in nature, similar to the review section of large articles. Because narrative reviews are usually organized as the introduction, no? Introduction which establishes the context of the field of research and the topic of the review. Then narrative review, right after introduction, we have background of or the body, not the content itself. Now, body is normally used for describing the different themes under the main topic by dividing them into different subheadings. No? So the section compares and contrasts published studies and identifies gaps that have not been addressed or have been unsuccessfully addressed. Take note of it. No? You must always required to look into the or to identify the gaps that not had been addressed or had been unsuccessfully addressed. No? Then after the narrative, so of course, as I mentioned earlier, narrative has a introduction, the body, and of course the conclusion. No? So in narrative review, the conclusion differs slightly between reviews which are part of research articles and narrative reviews. In conclusion, it described the main conclusion from analysis of all the current studies. Take note, current studies inputs forth further avenues for research. And this section requires critical interpretation by the author such that the review adds value to existing literature. It should bring out ideas, hypotheses that can explain any discrepancies and provide solutions to existing problems. No? So if you wanted to, let's say for example, you have a disagreement with the previous literature related to your topic, or even you have a disagreement with the hypothesis of the study of one research published. No? So you look into it and try to bring out this discrepancy and provide solution. And this will be this is also considered as a research gap. No? Then when it comes to systematic, so a while ago we discussed about narrative reviews. This time the systematic reviews. On the other hand, systematic reviews follows a well-planned methodology to qualitatively or quantitatively analyze defined number of studies. Okay? So they usually focus on a single question and have clear study objectives that are worked upon in a systematic manner. So this study are based on a well-defined strategy, no? Unlike narrative reviews, because systematic reviews and narrative reviews are organized slightly differently. No? So now, a while ago, I mentioned about the narrative review. We had introduction, body, and conclusion. When it comes to systematic review, of course, number one, of course, still required to have an introduction. No? So systematic reviews begin with specific research questions that are defined in terms of the samples and research outcomes to be studied. Then after the introduction, the methods. Again, methods is only for systematic reviews, not for narrative reviews. So methods is this studies has a comprehensive or have a comprehensive methodology that starts by narrowing down the literature for the review. Usually, specific inclusion or exclusion criteria are set based on the research. Questions and databases are searched based on the criteria. So once the sample studies had been shortlisted, they are analyzed in detail. Then after methodology, we have results. No? So the results section for this study involved comprehensively data analysis to determine the significance of the study outcomes, because systematic reviews can be accompanied with method analysis which involve statistical analysis of the included studies or increase the power of the results. So again, narrative reviews most commonly used in qualitative research. No? Then systematic review most commonly used for quantitative, but still pwede sa mixed method. Okay? Kasi pag sinabi natin mixed method, may quali, may quanti. But narrative reviews purely for quali. But systematic reviews allowed either quali or quanti. That is mixed method. Okay? Now, after the results in your systematic review, you need to have a discussions. So this section usually interprets the study data based on the weighted significance and power of the results. So that's why you may encounter in the statement of the problem, is there any significant difference? Is there any significant relationship? It's just a matter of the differences and relationship. Okay, so again, before starting to write review, it is important to determine what kind of review you want to write and follow the appropriate style and guidelines. So an effective literature review is important for the complete life cycle of the research, from defining the right research goals to correctly interpreting and presenting the research results. Okay? So I think that's it for the review of related literature. Actually, again, as I mentioned earlier, no, we need also to consider the let's say, for example, your proposal is management practices of selected higher education institution in the Philippines. So therefore, be sure that your amidst pandemic, let's say, no, amidst pandemic or during the COVID-19 2021, preparation for the strategic development plan in the next normal. So therefore, your review of related literature must be started from December 2019 up to present. Again, your review of related literature years must be, no, actually it depends upon to your proposal. Let's say, for example, if it is historical, at least 5 years. No, today is 2022, so therefore at least 2017. Started 2017. And most commonly, for you to justify your study, at least you have at least 10 literature local, 10 literature, 10 to 15 actually, no? 10 to 15 literature local, 10 literature foreign. 10 studies local, 10 related studies foreign. So most commonly, no, it depends upon to the institution. But most commonly, when it comes to educational research, most commonly, yun yung pina-follow natin. Okay? Again, evaluate past research is important. Identify experts, no? Identify key questions is very important. And determine methodologies used in the past studies. Okay? So, again, introduce the topic as what our presenter mentioned. Establish the significance of the study. Provide an overview of the relevant literature. Establish a context of the study using the literature. Don't forget to identify knowledge gaps, because during defense, during your presentation, always all panels asking about the gaps. What will be the research gap? How did you come up with this proposal? How did you come up with this title, and so on and so forth? It define, you will be able to look the said gaps during your review of related literature. Okay? Okay, so actually, no, I just want to share this one. There are 3 common mistakes, no, that researchers make when including literature reviews in the discussion section. First, they mention all sorts of studies, some of which are not even relevant on the topic under investigations. Number 2, instead of citing the original article, they cited a related article that mentioned the original article. So if this will be the case, try to look, no, the original article, no. Lastly, some authors cite previous work solely based on the abstract without even going through the entire paper. Okay, because as I mentioned earlier, no, okay, just for me to comply that 10 to 15 literature, I'll just simply try to read the abstract and get the gist of this research, no. So as much as possible, try to look with the result, no. No, of course, the methodologies, no, methodology, the result, the discussions, and of course the recommendations, no. This will be a good guide, no, for you to develop your review of related literature. Okay.